morning to you.
I was trying to tell in Punjabi that this is a very, disturbing episode that we saw. 11 people got killed and dozens of them are injured and in the hospitals. And this is going to be a very case study kind of situation from many angles, from law and order to the management of the huge events and to the, all the challenges of that suspect's family was going through to manage the, mental health patients, etc. Many angles. How do you see it?
Yeah, this tragedy definitely has had a profound effect on the province. And it's started, once again, a really significant conversation on both the treatment of people with mental illness in the province and public safety. And these are very righteous conversations that we have to have. And I think, respecting the fact that obviously we want to make sure that we don't contaminate any future prosecution, I think that there's additionally plenty of other evidence that we can point to in our province, plenty of other circumstances and tragedies and horrific things that have happened that show us that how we are dealing with people with severe mental illness who may be violent, we're not dealing with it properly here in BC. And I think, Dr. Romana, as you know, it's important for us not to stigmatize people who have mental illness. The vast majority of people who have some form of mental illness, they never get in any trouble. They are not violent. But there is a portion of our society who their illness is such that it may lead to violence, and that's why we need to find ways of dealing with this particular group of people that can make sure that they are kept safe as people experiencing illness, but that the rest of the community is also safe. And so that's why actually this is a very important time for us to get it right, to review our entire mental health care system, and to make sure that we're making changes that truly address what is happening here in the province.
Definitely, the biggest question is that what could have or should have been done to avoid this tragedy, and I'm trying to make some sense of all the statements that are being regarding this incident. I think all of us, we want some solution, and all of us, we want that these kind of incidents shouldn't happen in future. Where do you see the difference? I think our Premier, Honorable David Eby, is saying almost the same thing, that let's not be quick judging the situation. There can be many colors. Let us decide what to do and how to do.
Correct. But, and that's why it's important, too, that we speak in a larger context. People can think back. I think I was on your show not that long ago talking about a woman maybe that got attacked on the seawall by someone with mental illness. We probably discussed on your show when someone in Vancouver had their hand cut off and another person murdered by someone with mental illness. Or what about the home invasions that we had in Surrey and on the island? There's so many incidents, Dr. Romana, where there's a failure of our system that deals with people with profound mental illness who may be violent, that we don't have to just look at what happened at Lapu Lapu, which is an important thing for us to remember and to look at, and we will. But when you look at the total situation in British Columbia and you see that there are so many tragedies, even within the last 12 months that have happened, that this action by the Premier is long overdue. They have been in power for 8 years, Dr. Romana. They've had plenty of time to be able to scale up services, including beds. But here's the thing, the Premier, he's been very back and forth, and it's almost like very reactionary, because on one hand, he's saying that he will call, doesn't get the answers from court. It is not the court's job to do a deep dive on our mental health system. That's the job of David Eby. And so, and then yesterday he suddenly came out and said he's going to do a deep dive on the Mental Health Act legislation. But also, when we're doing a deep dive on legislation, how do we know what is not being addressed through legislation without looking at the total system? And while I agree we definitely need more beds and also services in the community, we don't have to stop doing that in order for us to take a review of the entire system. I think it's not just one solution, Dr. Romana. I think that it's many, many things that have to happen at the same time. We have to review the total system to understand where those gaps are, concisely. We have to, I don't even think necessarily change our Mental Health Act, because when you meet the criteria, it can work very well. But we do have gaps where perhaps accompanying legislation might be able to help us address people who have sort of maybe deterioration and they don't meet the criteria, or people who have danger to themselves or others because of drug use. We can bring in compassionate intervention legislation. But there are a multitude of other things that we can do here. The opposition has been very clear that we're willing to support change. We have put forward several ideas to help. We're not just here to criticize. We're also here to help find the solution. But our premier needs to, to work together with us, and he needs to also recognize that it's not going to just be one solution. We need to have a full, thorough review of the system. And yes, we need to look at our legislative options, and then we need to also concurrently be scaling up services to a much more significant degree than what we have currently in the province.
Do you think that this is kind of delaying tactics, or is a politics being played? You haven't said that, but I want to ask you from this angle as well. But when Premier says that there are certain groups that are challenging the forcible treatment of the mental illness patients, that's a genuine concern, because if you are sitting in a Premier's chair, you have to see all the angles.
Yeah, that's true. And actually, I'm well aware of that because of my own work as mental health and addictions critic in the last session. And I'm well aware of that, which is why actually my suggestion is not necessarily to do an overhaul of that legislation, but to look at companion legislation, because we do not want what we have now, which is actually better than some other provinces, our ability to bring people into care and treat them without a court order in an emergency basis. We don't want to lose that ability. And so if we, continue to look at our Mental Health Act, but look at ways of supporting it through companion legislation, we don't take the risk of having our Mental Health Act end up in Supreme Court challenges and mired in court while we're actually trying to help people. We need to look at other provinces and other jurisdictions, how they've brought in Alberta, they brought in some compassionate intervention legislation, and is there a way that we can use some of these tools to address the situations when the criteria of the Mental Health Act is not met?
Can you hold for a second? Let me take this call. Probably he has some suggestion to make. Prabjot Pal ji, Sat Shri Akal, ki kehna cha rahe ho?
I just want to ask you, election is over, even for the province. Right now, this is the time to come up with ideas. You can get the solution. Why we are focusing on blaming only the premier when the opposition is there? Did opposition did any effort to correct this before this happened?
Thank you. And Eleanor, even though it was a federal election, but criticizing just for the sake of it, I think that's a question.
Yeah, and you know what? Thank you to the caller for the question, and I'd like to let your listeners know that actually the only person in this entire legislature that has brought forward amendments to the Mental Health Act and mental health legislation to help solve this crisis is me. I actually introduced for 3 years in a row a Mental Health Act amendment bill to help improve communication between close relatives and mental health crisis. I'm the only one in this legislature that did it to help the government. I actually met this week briefly with Minister Osborne because, look, I am willing as a member of the opposition to bring ideas forward. I'm not going to be selfish and political when it comes to trying to save lives in British Columbia. I hope that my constituents and British Columbians will know that. This was a tragedy that happened in Vancouver, a mass murder. I was there at the festival earlier in the day, and I can tell you it has had a profound impact on me. I'm very devastated by what happened, and I want British Columbians to know they have my full commitment. If the Premier wants to talk about solutions and work together, I am more than willing to do that.
And what I'm getting from you is that probably they're not willing to do that, or it's too quick for them to do that, because the investigation and public inquiry and review and everything, and probably they're thinking 1,000 other things as well.
Well, I think that's why we can't wait for this court case to be over, because frankly, it could take years. And we need to set this particular incident perhaps to the side to let it have its process, but we can focus on our mental health care system and look at the multitude, like many, many other things. We've even had other murders, Dr. Romana, that happened because people didn't receive the proper mental health treatment that they needed or support in the community. I think that we have plenty of evidence to start this work today. We don't have to wait for the trial to be over. And
Great.
so
Let me take one more call. Bhupinder Dhaliwal ji, ki kehna chaਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ? What do you want to ask Bhupinder Dhaliwal?
Yeah, no, I just tuned in. Your guest, she's a very great personality. All I'm trying to say that years ago, the previous governments, I believe as BC Liberals, they closed this institution for the mentally sick, So the now present, this conservative Eleanor's party, they should keep the government in check, and they should have institutions where these mentally sick people should be taken care. This is every month, every year, it's going high and high, this crime rate. So I mean, all I'm trying to say that she's doing a good job, and she should keep the premier in check. Thank you, sir.
That's what she's doing. A suggestion for you, Eleanor?
Yeah, I think that that's great, and it is a balance. I definitely have been pushing the premier hard this week, and that is my duty, and I absolutely will keep doing it. And I'm in full support of building a new forensic psychiatric hospital that's new and modern and gives people the care and safety and dignity that they deserve. We definitely ran on a platform of that, and look, I'm going to continue to be a strong voice in Victoria for trying to get these things done. I think that we as leaders in the community have to take people who are sick and we have to give them care. It's our responsibility. And so I thank the caller for his comments.
Shed some more light on, you just mentioned forensic hospital. What do you mean by that? Shed some more light on it.
Well, forensic psychiatric hospital is for primarily for people who are in the criminal justice system, who have violence, who suffer from profound mental illness, and need treatment. And it is a place where they can receive very specialized psychiatric care from trained psychiatrists, addictions doctors, psychiatric nurses, and other healthcare specialists that are trained to deal with people with those specific conditions. So if someone, for example, is convicted of a crime, but they are found not criminally responsible, so they're actually not convicted, they're found not criminally responsible, they can be sent to a forensic psychiatric hospital and they can receive treatment there. So, for example, you probably heard of Alan Schoenborn. Remember?
Yes.
His family. Mm-hmm. He is in a forensic psychiatric hospital. So we need more beds for forensic psych, for people who are entwined with the criminal justice system. And then what we also need is secure long-term care. So for people even who are not in the criminal justice system, but actually need our help to be safe. And, there's plenty of ways that we can look to other places where this dignified care is being provided. And even we're doing some things right in this province. We have Redfish Healing Center that provides treatment. And of course, I think that the Colony Farm Forensic Psychiatric Hospital is a good hospital that we have here in British Columbia. And I fully support the work that they do there.
Once again, concluding this, let our listeners know what exactly you want to tell to our Premier, David Eby, and the government. You have 1 minute to go.
Yeah, well, I would say to Premier Eby that, you have our commitment that we want to work together to solve this problem for British Columbians. I think that some of the things the Premier has said this week in terms of wanting to look at legislation and procedures are good things, but we do need a full review of our system to know exactly where the gaps are in care, and we need to be able to have an opportunity to listen to the families of people who need our help as well as people who are in the system who need our help. And police officers and healthcare workers. I just think it's time. It's well past time that we do this. We can do this at the same time as scaling up services we already know are successful. And so I think the time is now for us to really, really make a difference in light of how many people have been hurt in this province because of inaction.
Thank you very much for your time. You don't sound like a politician to me. You sound like a doctor or a vice chancellor or something.
Well, you know what? I hope that people know that we're working hard over here in Victoria, and just my deepest condolences go out to everybody impacted by the tragedy last weekend.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me on. Take care.
Eleanor Sturko जी ਦੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਸੁਣੀ ਹੈ ਤੁਸੀਂ। ਗੱਲਾਂ ਬਾਤਾਂ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ ਰਲਦੀਆਂ ਮਿਲਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ, ਪਰ ਚੰਗਿਆੜੇ ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਨਿਕਲਦੇ ਇਹਦਾ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ।